Hello everyone, this is Jacob Popio, the producer of The Apex. Today we interview Mr. Jason Ham. We dive into the South Korean culture and competition. Then we go into the South Korean army and lessons learned. Next, we go into his move back to America and leaving LG. Then we go into the wise words of get out there and chase the dream. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
Welcome to JJD Thoughts Podcast, Episode 4. I'm your host, John Almsey, and today I'd like to open up the podcast with a quote by a gentleman named James Adams. He wrote a book called The Epic of America, and in this book, he kind of describes the American dream. And today's episode is going to be kind of focused on that concept. So let's go ahead and go to the quote. The American dream is that dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to their individual abilities and achievements. It is not a dream of motor cars and high wages merely, but a dream of social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest stature of what they are innately capable, and be recognized by others for what they truly are, regardless of the fortuitous circumstances of their birth or their individual positions. So that's a quote, like I said, by James Adams. And I think that it really encompasses the American dream in general, where it's not just money. It's not just cars. It's not just making a crazy life for yourself or being a person that's on TV all the time and being a rock star or a movie star. It's more than that. It's about being able to realize your full potential regardless of what that potential is. And if you haven't caught that vibe from the podcast yet, by episode 4, I'm hoping that you'll be able to see that this is what we're centered around here at JJD in the Apex. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Mr. Jason Ham. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So why don't just introduce yourself? So you are the owner of ExperiMac here in Canton, right? So why don't you just walk us through what that is, and then we can kind of rewind and talk about how you got there.
Yeah. Yes, my name is Jason Ham, and I'm the owner of ExperiMac store in Canton. What we do is we sell, trade in, repair all the Apple devices, including computers, iPhones, iPads. Mm-hmm. So we service everything, from iPhone to computers, and then we also sell the refurbished computers. So we provide a lot of, technical support to the community, and then just people loves it.
Yeah, I mean the computer that I'm using right now was repaired by you guys. That's actually how we met. I just kind of came into the store the one day and was talking about the fact that I was trying to do this, and then probably 6 months later, I was like, hey, I know at that point I was just posting random things on Facebook, but we actually have a studio now. We would love to have you on a podcast.
Yeah. My pleasure to be here. So, yeah.
Okay. So that's what you do now, right? And so the interesting thing isn't necessarily what you're doing currently, but kind of the journey to that point, right? So you grew up in South Korea.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So when did you... what was it like growing up there? If you had to point out a couple of main differences between like American and South Korean culture as far as what it was like growing up, what would they be?
I guess, the main difference would be probably, we have a lot of, not like a communist rules, but like a strict rules we have to follow. What I really like about America when I first came here is I was a 16 years old high school kid, but it was just there's a freedom, there's nothing that I have experienced before because a lot of kids in South Korea, from elementary to all the way to college, I guess, they are all have to study all the time. They have exams always. They spend hours even after school. They went to the separate lecture or whatever to try to get ahead from somebody. So there's a lot of competition even in the elementary school.
It starts that early.
Yeah, it starts out early. A lot of it has to do with the parents too. They want their child to be a number one.
Right.
I think it has a plus and minus, but a lot of times as a kid, I feel pressured all the time.
Right.
I have to be number one student so that my parents can be happy. Things like that. So, but here in America, I guess. You have a lot of freedom to, I guess, you can choose what you want to be. You don't have to follow everyone's path, like South Korea. You have to go to the good school, you have to go to the good university, good job. That's the path everyone follows in South Korea. But here, I feel there's a lot of opportunities. You don't have to go to university if you don't want to.
Right.
And still be a great person, and everyone recognize it, and everyone appreciate what you do. I guess that's the main difference I felt over the years. And then, I guess, if I talk more about what I like about America is not about, just like your quote earlier, if I just add it to American Dream, it's the country of a conscious. There's no other country in the world, that just stands up for what's right and what helping people. That's what United States has been done over the past, like, I don't know, maybe 50, 100 years.
Right.
Fighting for what's right. That's what I like about America. So yeah,
being willing to step out of what may directly benefit the country,
right?
Because there's something morally incomprehensible happening
Right.
in the world. We saw that with the world wars or trying to halt. I know that people kind of look at Vietnam as like a failed conflict,
Right.
but the mentality behind it
Right.
was to
Try to
halt.
help people.
Yeah.
So that's what I really like about America. The leadership, not just for for the benefit of the country, but just helping people. Where people are struggling.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, did you have something?
Yeah. Do you think that resonates through other countries in the world, or do you think they're bothered by America sticking their hands in everything?
Sometimes some countries are bothered because sometimes they feel the United States are intervening too much. But I guess, but the motive behind why the America does it, that's what I like about it. It's, they just step in because there's something going on that's not right.
Right.
So they want to make it correct. That's what I like about it. So, over there, maybe the last 2 years, I haven't seen that, but it's diminishing. But, still, it's the country of a conscious, I like about it. Yes.
Right. So what prompted you moving to America at 16?
Well, it wasn't my choice, actually. My father had a business in the States. He was doing this business with one person in Texas. So it wasn't my choice, but we just moved over to Texas when I was 16.
And how long did you guys stay there?
Probably about 9 years in Texas. And then I just graduated from University of Texas there. And then I moved back to Korea again to serve in the Army.
Okay.
Because all these South Korean has to go to the Army.
Right.
military service for 2 years.
So even after moving to the United States and living in the United States for 9 years, it's still required
Yes.
for you to move back at some point and serve.
Unless you
Korean Army.
you become a citizen of the United States and you just unless
Right. Relinquish those rights to
Right.
South Korea, then.
you still have to go. Mhm.
Gotcha. Well, let's explore that. That's something that is totally foreign to me because as a military member, right. When I was 18 years old, I actually went through the entire enlistment process with the Marine Corps because that's what my family is. That's what I wanted to do. And my grandpa ended up sitting me down and basically told me, hey, you should join the Air National Guard, go to school and everything like that. And that's kind of how I ended up at Walsh, how I ended up where I'm at was through military service. But 3 days after I turned 18, I was running to the recruitment office to sign paperwork to get into the U.S. military because we are like I'm super passionate about the flag and the American dream and what it stands for, and it's amazing to be able to put on a uniform that stands for that, right?
Yeah.
But I know that that's not I've worked with some other military members from other countries, and I know that that's not always the perception of military units in other nations and stuff like that. So after spending 9 years in the United States, what was it like to have to move back and enlist?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough time. The first probably 6 months, it was a really tough. I guess, because I spent 9 years in the States, I was a little bit, I guess,
like spoiled almost a little bit.
Yeah, so I felt, what am I doing here? Why am I here?
Right.
But I think it was a great experience for me because it gives me a different perspective, I guess, to the, personal life or, serving as a countryman. I feel proud to be a part of the military, but everyone has to do it. So, but it was a tough time because I couldn't adjust to this new environment
right
after 9 years.
Yeah. So do you guys? I know like stateside we have like basic training, right? You have to go, and I went to Texas. I actually went to San Antonio for 9.5 weeks, and you wake up super early and run, and basically they tell you that you're useless and everything else for like 9 weeks, and then they try to build you back up. Right. So is there a process like that when you come into the South Korean Army, or
you spend about probably 3 or 4 months in the training. That's the training period, and then you were assigned to the different camp.
Right.
Units. So that 3 or 4 months was the toughest time I had.
Oh, I bet.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it was hard for me even. I mean, because I'd spent all 18 years of my life here in the United States. So going from that down to Lackland and having all of my freedom stripped away, and I was told when to shower, when to go to the bathroom, when to eat, like when to wake up, when to go to sleep, what I wasn't allowed to wear. I mean, that was a huge shock for me.
Yeah.
And so I can't even imagine after and that was voluntarily wanting to go down there. So, I mean, being forcibly put in that position, I can't imagine what that mental state must have been like for that 3 to 4 months.
I remember the first night in that training camp, about 30 guys lying on a bed. Not a single person did not cry. That person. I mean, all the people in my room, about 30 people, they were just crying, including me. I mean, they don't want to show they were crying, but I can hear that. And I was crying too.
You hear them trying to muffle it with their pillow.
So it was a very different experience, but I have to do it because I'm still a Korean. I have to serve my country. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and like you said, regardless of whether that's being forced on you or it's voluntarily, like after that 2 years, you develop like a sense of nationality and a sense of pride for having done it.
Yes. If I somehow just didn't do it, the 2 years of military service,
Right.
I'll be probably shamed, because everyone has to do it. Who's going to protect the country then? If everyone has an excuse to discharge from the military. So
Right.
yeah.
So how many was the rest of your family still stateside at that point then?
No, we moved back.
All of you moved back
Yeah,
for that period?
all of us moved back.
How many like siblings? What
I
does
have
your
one-
family look like?
One younger brother.
One younger
Yeah.
brother? Okay.
We moved back, and then I got a job there. I was working at the LG Electronics.
What were you doing there?
I was working at the LG display company.
Okay.
Makes a LCD TV and monitors. I worked there at the R&D center for a long time. I guess about 10 years, and then after 10 years, I was relocated to United States here in Canton.
And this is with LG?
Yeah, with the LG, work on fuel cell R&D, which is located at the Stark State campus right now. I was there for controls, system engineering manager. I worked there for about 6 years until the end of 2016, and I quit. I started this ExperiMac, my own company.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what was, because there's a lot of technology out, like we were talking just before we started recording about hardware and software availability and stuff like that. And you were kind of talking about how South Korea is huge on the hardware manufacturing, but there's not as much software to utilize it.
Right.
But so what does that do to like the mentality as far as a culture if the country is built specifically on like Samsung, like you said, where it's just hardware, but there's not really anywhere to go from there?
Yeah. I guess a lot of South Korea, the South Korea economy basically is run by big companies like a Samsung, LG, Hyundai, car manufacturer. We don't have a lot of like a mid-size venture companies that stands out and is recognized all over the world.
Right.
So what that means is everybody, including all the younger generation, they want to be a part of the big company. They don't want to venture out. They want to just have a safe job, security. I guess because they pay well in a big company than the smaller company. But I think that's the problem we have in South Korea. The younger generation right now is they just want to be safe. They just want to be relaxed.
It's like the anti almost of like what the American dream kind of preaches.
Right.
Where
So
you're
you have
talking
to go
about,
out. Yeah, you have to go out and challenge everything and try to earn it. But they want to be a part of this one secure group.
be in a comfort zone.
Yeah, comfort zone.
Right.
That's one problem right now. And then also the government is also hiring all these, increasing the number of employees in the government agencies, the public jobs, the public service jobs.
Right.
So all the young generation is trying to get a job in that area, not try to open up their small companies or try to venture out, explore their capabilities. That's the problem right now.
Right.
And I don't see any clear way to correct that because the South Korea has been after the Korean War, the economy actually built based on those big companies. The Samsung, Hyundai, LG, they started out as a small company, and then they become big company, and then they are the major part of the economy right now.
Yeah, I have a Samsung phone.
Right.
It's sitting on the counter right here.
I guess it's a good in terms of growing, size of the economy.
Right.
Now we are at the point where that's not going to do it for us for the future. We need some kind of I guess, the creative, innovative way to drive more younger people to explore new opportunities, not just sitting in the comfort zone.
Right. I think that's a huge thing with even, I mean, people complain about like American education and everything like that. I listen to people all the time talk about the deficits in American education. But I think one of the big things that's a positive here is that like in high school and everything like that, when I was going through high school, they would always talk about, hey, we have this computer science program that you can go to, or hey, there's this auto tech program you can go to. You can be a welder. You can do this. You can do that. I mean, from being a little kid, I was told that I could be an astronaut, a doctor, a nurse, in the military, whatever. And so, I mean, what that does over time is just we don't. At least I don't know. I don't know if I'm speaking for you here, but there's nothing inside of my head that it's like, oh no, I couldn't do that. That's not for me.
Right.
But it's just kind of, oh no, I can take a jump and give this a shot. And if it doesn't happen, okay, it doesn't happen. But
I mean, I guess it's also another reason why the South Korea right now is having problem is, I mean, look at the country, about almost 80 million people living in the size of Indiana. Imagine that.
right.
You got a lot of competition among ourselves, and then still we have to compete with the outside.
Right.
So there's not a lot of resource in South Korea. We don't have any oils. We don't have any natural resource, anything.
Yeah.
I think that's one disadvantage we have, but we have overcome over the years. Like the Samsung, LG, they grew up like a big major company in the world, but now they reached the limit. I think at some point, they cannot grow more.
Right.
So
they have a cap.
Yeah. So I don't know if we can continue that, but that's a lot of South Korea right now sees a lot of problem with that. Younger generation has to be more, have more challenges. Just explore outside. Just don't stick with, inside. Just go out there and just do something.
Right. Don't be afraid to do something different.
So, So
yeah, that reminds me of like a Robert Frost wrote a poem, right, called "The Path Less Traveled" or "The Road Less Traveled." Someone will probably correct me on that, but I mean, in that poem, he talks about two paths that diverged in a yellow wood, and that he took the path less traveled by, and that made all the difference, right? And that's a concept, I think. I mean, and that's an American poet that wrote that, and so it's so deeply ingrained in the culture that it's just like, oh, there's a path. Like, you don't like the two paths that are in front of you, go ahead and start cutting down trees and just make your own. So in the with that being the culture mindset, so you moved back and you had this job at LG, and then you came and you started working in Stark State's campus. What was it like working for LG in South Korea versus working for LG at Stark State?
I mean, it's basically the same company, but all the employees is already. It used to be a Rolls-Royce fuel cell. Just LG bought that company, so there is already the American people working in that company. We just joined. The few people from LG from South Korea just joined that company. I see a lot of things.
Well, because
differences.
You were a manager, right?
Yeah.
Were you a manager in South Korea, or did that only happen when you came here?
No, I was the manager in South Korea too, and then there's a lot of different managers in the organization. But the major difference I see is in South Korea, I guess it's just a cultural thing, but everything is a top down. See, we top, the executive, people just order something, and it just goes down to the bottom. We just follow the orders. without asking, why do I have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is this way? Why can't this be a different way? Why
Right.
can't I just suggest different way and make it better? We don't have that communication
Right.
in South Korea a lot.
Is it because like when people at the bottom try to suggest ideas, they're shot down, or is it just like you said, a cultural thing where people are just like from a young age, just you don't question things?
Yeah, just I guess it's a major thing. It's a cultural thing. We see that all like that in many different levels of the society, not just the company, but you know, all over. But that's the way it is in South Korea right now.
Right.
But here, when I came here, everyone listens, even if you're bottom in the organization. If he speaks out, if he's the one who knows something, the top manager listens, and then that voice from the bottom is actually implemented in some plan or process. So that was the main difference, and I really liked it because you never know. I mean, if you're sitting at the top, you cannot see everything in an organization, right?
Exactly.
So sometimes you just make a bad decision based on what you only know. But if you listen all the people in an organization and then what they're thinking about and what's the best for the organization, then you just absorb that all the information and then make decision based on that. It's better decision, of course.
Exactly.
So that's the main difference I see, and I really like it. But I mean, I'm not saying that all the South Korean companies doing that, but there are some South Korean company does like that. It does, the American way. But most of the companies, we just follow the orders from the top.
Right.
So,
Do you think that's what is causing the plateau?
yeah, it's part of it. Yes. We see that it is definitely the part of it, because all the low-level employees don't have the communication channel to the top.
Right.
So, I mean, they were just, I'm going to just get a paycheck. I don't care, what they told me to do. I just do it. So,
Yeah. As long as I see those numbers on a
Right.
piece of paper at the end of the week, life's
So-
good. And that, I mean, that can be a really dangerous thing, I think.
Right,
Like
right.
if you are at the top, if you're an executive, and just from my experiences, even a sergeant, which is like a mid-level manager, basically, right? And so I only have a couple of people under me. But if I didn't listen to them and take that information, one of the rules of thumb that I try to work on is I call it the 80-20. And I mean, it's a lot of people use it, right? It's been used all the time, but it's listen 80% of the time, talk 20% of the time.
yeah.
And so if you're able to listen and use that input and take criticism, because sometimes I tell people, like, if I'm making a stupid decision, tell me as I'm making the stupid decision, not 3 months down the road.
Right.
After we've been making stupid decisions now for
Right.
3 months. I'm going to be more angry 3 months down the road if we're 3 months into stupidity.
Yes.
Instead of you just speaking up at the beginning, being like, I don't know if that's a good idea. You know what I mean? There's been plenty of times just trying to get this going where my friends have been like, probably not do that yet. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yes.
you're able to, a gentleman that I mention on here all the time, his name's Jocko Willink. He wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. And in that book, he talks about being able to detach yourself and look at kind of like in the third person.
Yeah.
And like look at yourself as a leader and be like, okay, am I doing the best thing for the people underneath of me? Do they understand why they're doing what they're doing? Do they understand how we need to get it done? Are they being able to operate autonomously so that they can come up with better ideas? And he was like, if someone's got a better idea of the way that I'm doing something, tell me.
Yeah.
Because it's going to do nothing but save us time, effort, and make us more efficient. And so that's a huge advantage, I think,
Yes.
to that, being able to take the criticism from the bottom up
Yes.
and not just rely on the top-down structure. So when in situations sometimes in life, right? People tend to think that success is all hard work, 100% hard work. And there's a lot of people that preach that. I see that all over the internet, different articles that I've read. And even I subscribe to that a little bit, where sometimes hard works beat talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? That's where that quote came from. But there was actually a gentleman named Dr. Forrest Bird, okay? And he was a really close family friend of ours growing up. And I'm super privileged to have known this man. He actually invented the first ventilator. In the G suit, and like all of these things. Like, he made a ventilator with a coffee can in like World War II. So this brilliant man, but he always talked about success being three things, right? Fate, time, and circumstance. And he was like, you just like happen to be in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and you are able to pick up on it and make a decision. And that's where he was like, I didn't invent, he's like, I invented the first ventilator, but I just happened to be the person alive in that period of time where there was a need for this thing. And I saw an opportunity and was like, hey, like, why don't we tape 2 coffee cans together and see what happens? Which is still mind boggling to me that he is able to come up with that. But he also is like, I didn't choose to grow up with the Wright brothers or to know Henry Ford or like any of these people. He was like, they were just people. And people tend to like dissociate these really big historical figures and almost make them inhuman. Or they're just enigmas or something like that they didn't have family issues or they didn't have all this other kind of stuff. But from leading you to quitting LG and starting ExperiMac, or really just life in general, do you think that, I guess, that there is a piece of it where it's just like, okay, this is kind of like a destiny, or this is I just happen to be in the right place at the right time with fate, time, and circumstance, or you think that it's all based off of hard work and like pushing yourself?
I believe not 100%, but I believe there's got to be right circumstances and then time. But when I decided to start the ExperiMac, I did not think this is my destiny or anything like that. I just want to be, I'm right now, I'm 48 right now. So I just don't want to be outside the box. Just like I told you about, all the South Korean people are just working for big companies. I've been doing that for entire my life.
Right. Even in America, you were still working under
for LG. But I just want to go out and try to do something, for myself while I can enjoy what I'm doing. Yes, it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and then you got to have a good luck, I guess, too.
Right. It's part of that fate.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also you have to meet right person, to do some new stuff. But I think the most important thing to be successful in your life is, I think, whoever do something, he's gonna get it. Instead of try to sit down and think about it.
Ah, okay.
So just go out there and do it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people, a lot of times, including myself, over time, I thought about a lot of things, and I thought about doing something new, starting a new business or something else, but I never actually do it.
Well, and what I've experienced is that it's almost like you come up with those ideas, and then there's like a little person on your shoulder that's like, oh, no, you can't do that. You start talking yourself out of it if you think about it for too long. Or it's like, oh, these are all the reasons why I could fail.
Yeah. So when I look back, I've been open for about a little over a year now, ExperiMac. When I look back, when I thought about doing this and did not do it, actually do something about it, I would have never been in this position right now.
Right.
Because it's probably in my head right now still. But I just did it without knowing how difficult it is, or I don't know the market in this area. I don't know the Canton area market. I don't know how many people have the Apple computer or whatever. I just want to do it. I just want to do help people to fix computer because I love working on Apple. I've been always a fan of Apple. So I just did it. And then I realized I should have done this earlier.
Yeah, you finally take the jump
when I was
and you're like,
when I was young,
yeah,
a little bit younger, I should have done this earlier.
right.
Why can't I just do it
Yeah,
earlier?
hindsight is always 2020. You realize,
Right.
oh man, I wish I would have done that 5 years ago.
I know there's a difficult times and there's going to be failure and things like that, but you never know if you don't try it.
Right. Yeah. So
That's
go out there and
that's the
do
way
it.
it is. So
So what was it? I mean, so you've been open for over a year now,
Yeah.
right? And but I mean, I didn't. Out of all of the stuff that you've done, like all of it was with either LG or whatever else. Like, where did you get all of the experience to have the confidence to be like, I'm going to open an Apple repair store? And was it just like a passion that you had on the side? Was working on Apple computers?
well, I've been always good with the computers. I have a major degree in a computer, and then I was always passionate about the new technology, all kinds of technology. So I guess I was comfortable with handling Apple computers too, because I've been using for entire my life,
Right.
ever since my high school years. So it really kind of fits me. So yeah, I mean, I guess I was confident when I started
just confident
it.
in your abilities. Because I was thinking, I was like, man, I feel like working on a LG is or a Dell or anything is
Yeah.
way different than trying to work on a Mac.
Right, yeah.
And coming from somebody that like I would look at the internals of this computer. I mean, as a nurse, I can look at the inside of a human body and be like, oh, I know what that is. I know how that works. I'm not a surgeon by any means. Like I can't rearrange it or anything. But like if I look on the inside of a computer, I'm like, yeah, there's a bunch of like green things with little metal dots on it, and they all kind of,
Chips or something.
Although
they all kind of connect.
right now I don't work on tiny stuff like phone repairs and iPad repairs. I just can't do it because my eye
Right.
eye doesn't, I can't see the small stuff. But also it was fortunate that I meet these technicians that work with me in my shop. 2 guys, they're really good on technical stuff. So that's, I think, it falls into category where the circumstances.
Right. They
It
all
was-
just kind of lined
yeah,
up.
they were the right people. They were the right guys
Right.
to work on joining my business. So
And that kind of goes into, like you said that you wish that you would have done that 5 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever. And there's a lot of people that fall into that trap, I think, where they beat themselves up. They're like, man, I should have done this a long time ago. I should have done this. I should have done that. But who's to say that if you would have tried it 5 years ago without being in the circumstances that you were in and meeting those people, that it would have either been a failure or it could have been a success? Like, we don't know.
yeah,
And that's where I kind of try to be at peace with it, because I used to beat myself up all the time over a lot of different things where I was just like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have made that decision. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have that same feeling every now and then.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, like, I am doing what I'm doing now because I met Jacob and I met this person and I kind of, all of this stuff's kind of lining up where
yeah,
this was the right time. You know what I mean? So that's just like another principle of that's so cool about the fact that you have this business now that you're starting and you're chasing something that you're passionate about and you're building it with these technicians and everything. Is just you met the right people for your dream to actually come to fruition.
yeah. I mean, I guess the hard work, if you work hard, just try to do something out. I think those kind of things, like all the right people, circumstances, sometimes it just comes to you. I think because you're doing it rather than sitting in a desk and thinking about it. You're doing it, meeting people, search for right people.
Right.
You're making it.
And those people are starting to become like
Right.
attracted to like what you're pushing
Right.
for instead of you just being like, hey, I have this idea.
Yeah. So I guess sometimes those circumstances it could be just pure luck, but most of the time I believe because you're doing it, it's happening. Because you're doing it, you're making the right time.
Right. Right.
I truly believe that way.
Yeah, it's like people that say that. I know people that talk about this all the time when they're like getting married or proposing to your wife or something like that. That you can try to set up this perfect time,
Yeah.
whatever. Like all of these things could line up, but there's never going to be a perfect
Yeah.
time to do it.
Yeah, just make it happen.
You may end up just proposing on your couch covered in Cheeto dust after watching Netflix or something, because there's never going to be a perfect time. You
Right.
just need to find the right time. So there's a difference between those two. And I mean, I really vibe with that. I really like something called the law of attraction, which is like if you put out negative vibes, you're going to get negative vibes returned. And if you put out positive energy, you get positive energy
True,
returned.
yes, yeah.
And that's kind of what you're talking about, which is just like if you're pushing forward and you're pushing the boundaries
Right.
and you're taking the leap and you're putting out all these positive vibes, you're networking with people.
Yeah.
You bring up a podcast that you have to some random owner in an ExperiMac store. Then you end up with a podcast guest, right? Or you end up with technicians that are willing to help you start your business
Yeah.
because you're pushing to that next level.
Yeah, because I started it because I'm initiating a process. Without me, probably it would not happen.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm the only one person who can do that, but it's just it happened to me that starting a ExperiMac in Canton.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's a quote above the door in my boxing gym, and it says, if you want to move fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
oh yeah, I remember that. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is super pivotal
Yeah.
to when people start these ventures, whether it's a business or they decide they want to go to school or whatever. I mean, if you are able to, there's something to be said about doing it alone because it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really tough to do stuff like that alone. But I think that there's even more to say about being willing to learn from other people and kind of check your ego and say, oh, I don't understand everything. These people have valuable input that are going to help me get to where I'm going, and then I can bring them up with me. I really like a quote. I'm just quoting a whole bunch of stuff now, but I really like a quote, and I don't know who the author is, but I know I heard it somewhere at one point where it says the true definition of success is not how successful you are, but how many people you're able to bring to success with you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so that principle is just kind of like,
yeah.
I love it because it's all about giving back, and it's being confident enough in yourself that, okay, I'm going to give away some of my little tips and tricks that I used to be successful because I want other people to be successful too. Which is kind of this podcast in general, is just giving like, oh, these are the struggles that I had. This is what I went through. These are the kind of things that I do. And core principles that people believe in that are pushing them to chase the dreams that they want to chase.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what if you had to distill like your definition of success down to like what you personally feel as success, what would it be?
I mean, that's kind of, I don't know why is it difficult to define at this moment, but just being, I don't care how much money I make. It's not that important to me.
Right.
The success has always been like just like what I do, and then just make enough money to feed your family. That's all I want. But in good way, not like I just want to make money.
Right.
And just want to do this every day to make money, but just interact with the people around you also, in the community. I love, in my shop, every day I see a lot of different people with a different problem, different background. At first, it was stressful because you hear all these different problems they have. I have to listen to them. I have to try to fix them. But now I'm enjoying it right now because every day I'm meeting new people with with a new background. And then I kind of like it right now, talking to people, not just about the computer, but, where they came from, what they do and things like that. It's just the fun.
Yeah,
Just having fun. And then in the process, we talk about, common thing with the customers and different people. So I guess the definition of success for me is just leave happy with the people. I mean, I didn't know that before when I worked for LG for a long time, but I realize right now, as you get older, there's nothing left except the people around you. I mean, I probably can make a lot of money staying in LG or big company, but I just want to meet with the new people, make a good friends. Part of this small community here in Canton. I mean, I guess that's my definition of the success. That's what I'm driving for right now.
Yeah, just doing what you're passionate about,
right?
And interacting with people, and forming relationships with people, rather than
going for
dollar bill.
Yeah, dollar bill, the big paycheck or things like that.
Right.
So it's just like go out and do it. Don't like plan, because you kind of like discussed just go out and do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a lot of people spend too much time planning instead of doing?
Yeah, I see some people do that, and I did that for myself too. I'm a big planner. I do a lot of planning before I do. Even I try to buy, dishwasher, for example. I do a lot of searching online and offline, and before I decide. But I just realized, don't just try to think too much about it. Just go out, do, and you make a mistake and you make a correction, and you just do it again and make a correction. It'll just happen.
Yeah, and at least if you have that forward momentum, you're able to make a correction and you're still moving forward.
Right.
And that's there's a dichotomy there, right? Because you can plan too little, and then if you jump off the cliff and you didn't look for rocks at the bottom, it's really gonna hurt if you make it to the bottom. But if you jump off the cliff after, like, oh, okay, I see that there's some water down there, I could probably be safe. I'll dive into the water, then I'm good. And then the final, like, is just standing there and planning so much. You're standing on the edge of the cliff staring over, and you're like, no.
Yeah.
You start thinking of too many possibilities, too many variables, and then you're just paralyzed. Like, you can't move at all because you're like, oh, so many things could go wrong.
Well, the thing is, like, if you go and do it and you do break your leg by jumping, your leg will heal.
Yeah.
You can fix yourself. Like he said, like, even if you fail, you can pick yourself back up and go again.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid to, like, fall down.
Yeah, and you can. It's the biggest piece is just like, while you're down there, okay, let's see here. How did I get here? How can I avoid getting here? How am I going to get myself out of it? And then you just keep rolling and keep moving forward.
Sometimes that's when you learn the best, is when you fall down.
Yeah, I actually, you know what? This is really weird because I was figuring out how I could use this quote, but my boxing trainer says things all the time, and it drives me nuts because he'll say something like ethereal, like off the top of his head, this really deep philosophical thing while we're doing mitts or we're training. And then 5 minutes later, he can't remember what he said. And I'm like, oh, jeez. So I've gotten in this habit now at the gym where he'll say something, and then he sees me run to my duffel bag, and I grab my phone, and I type it into my phone real quick. Because so today when I was leaving the gym, he was like, okay, what'd you write down? And I was like, oh, like, you saw me? And he was like, yeah, I saw you. He was like, I don't remember what I said, but I want to hear it. So, yeah, this is actually what he said today. He said, falling down in frustration is a gift. It can be used as the ultimate form of learning or motivation. But if you don't learn from it or you let it get the best of you, it's not a gift anymore. It becomes torture.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just lay down there and you're frustrated with a broken leg, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go get it casted and then get some crutches and we'll hobble along for a little bit, but eventually I'll be back to sprinting.
You can walk again.
Right. I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I love reading, like different books or listening to audiobooks and stuff like that. Is there any authors that you like looking at, or like a podcast that you listen to, or a resource that you use for like if you're looking for business inspiration or ideas or any like recommendations as far as material for people to look at that you've used in the past?
I mean, I don't go to the online much looking for podcasts. Usually where I get inspiration is I'm a Christian. So I don't know if it's appropriate to
Oh yeah, no, go
tell
ahead.
about the religious
Yeah,
belief, but you know.
No, I'm blatantly a Christian as well. So
Yeah.
it's
okay.
so yeah, no, you're good.
We're in a Catholic college.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I forgot.
I'm sure if I tried to suppress Christianity on Walsh's campus, I'd get some backlash. So.
You might turn into flames or something.
Right.
But you know, you know, a lot of times, you know, every day I pray every day, every morning before I go to sleep, and then there's always the word from the church every week.
Mm-hmm.
That's the words that I strictly follow. I don't follow others people's. Actually, you know, there's a good quote, you know, definitely, but because of my belief, that's the where I get most of the inspiration, the Bible.
Yeah.
And then I know the God always help me through people around me. It's not like a lot of people believe God that He does all these supernatural thing, you know, just magical, you know, magic.
Right.
I don't believe that. It's always been, you know, even in the Bible past, it's always been a people. The work for God, you know, they help you through the difficult times.
Right.
So I truly believe that. So that's why I pray every day. Yes.
Yeah, and that's I keep bringing up Marquise at this point, but that's why he's so big on like we're not allowed to cuss at the gym. I just had to do 20 push-ups today because I used profanity in the gym, and so that's the consequence is you have to do push-ups every time you cuss. And some of the workouts get pretty intense, so it's really easy to slip up. But one of the reasons that he does that is because that's what, I mean, he stands for. It's just like, this is where our community, that if we like work through God, we're going to work through each other and we help push each other to the next level. And that's kind of where I point to, where it's just with fate, time, and circumstance. Something that I added onto it. I used that concept in the speech that I gave here at Walsh, but something that I added onto it was that God controls those three things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you're going to end up where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to get there, for the reasons that you're supposed to get there. You just have to take your hands off your eyes and see it. Mm-hmm. Because I think that deep down, a lot of people have that, like you said, that little nagging feeling that's like, oh, I need to be outside the box. Like I should go be outside the box. And it's there, but people either talk themselves out of it, or they're afraid to follow it, or society tells them that it's not okay to do that. And there's so many limiting factors to it that people are paralyzed by it and they can't move forward.
Yeah. You need to take the leap of faith.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's like you're standing on the edge of that cliff, and whether there's rocks at the bottom or whatever else, it's just, okay, if I break my leg, I'm going to be able to get up and keep moving because I have this faith that I'm going to be able to push past it.
Well, once you find that, then you find comfort in going and exploring because you know that God is like on your side. He's on your team.
Yeah, that's the big reason that I just do it, because I know I have a faith that he's going to be with me all the
Right.
time. That's the one reason why I just do it.
Yeah, and if you're doing it for the right reasons and you want to help people and you're
Yes.
not malicious about it,
Yes.
like, I know that, like, my dad runs a medical sales company, right? And he has told me multiple times where there's been times where he's like, oh, like, I could donate this money to a charity, but he's like, we really, if I do that, we might struggle to pay bills at the end of the month. But he's kind of almost always said, you know what? I need to donate. He's like, I'm being called to do this. I'm going to donate the money. And then he was like, and then weirdly enough, we make a $50,000 sale like 2 weeks later. He was like, somehow it always comes through. And he was like, and if the couple of times that I didn't give that $500, like
money.
we lost the sale or something else crazy happened. He was like, oh, okay. I don't know how much more blatant you can get than that. And whether you believe that's the universe or you're religious or you're not religious or anything else, that's kind of like it just breaks down to, I think, that principle of that law of attraction, where it's if you're doing positive things and you want the best for people and you're trying to help other people out and you realize that we're all on a same team as humans,
Yeah.
whether it's to reach a religious end goal or just to have a good society, if we're all on the same team and we're all trying to help each other to the next level, that creates a totally different dynamic than having 80 million people in the size of Indiana constantly trying to fight to see who's going to be the next person up on the totem pole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's able to create that culture of kind of that American dream idea where it's not all about the cars. It's not all about the money. It's not about working for this big corporation or having a title. It's more than that.
It's more than that. Yes, definitely. Yes.
Nice. Okay, so I mean, to kind of close out, right? We walked through all the way from, I mean, your military service to working with these big companies and ExperiMac and everything like that. And at this point, to kind of just close out the podcast, I want to give you the opportunity to just, if there's something that you want to tell, like, the people here. And I know that we kind of talked about this a little bit when I came into your store, where it was just understand the amount of opportunity that's here, right? So if there's just, I mean, the floor is yours. If there's just to end it and to kind of wrap things up, whatever message you want to try to impart.
Okay.
It's all you.
Okay. I mean, I don't have a lot to say, but I'm not a smartest person in the world, where I'm not an intelligent person. But only thing I can say is I'm proud of myself because I'm making it happen. Whatever it is, if it's a personal or business, if I see that it has to be done, you just go out there, do it. Don't try to think about it. Don't try to think about what are the risk involved, whatever. You never know what the risks are if you don't try it. So I would say, coming into United States from totally different culture, I see even in this small city of Canton, there's a lot of opportunities for the young people, even the older people. I mean, if you try to do something good for the community and people here, I mean, it's going to happen to you, no matter what. It's going to take time, of course. You're going to lose money. You're going to have difficult times. You're going to have a failure. You're going to have a downtime. But if you keep doing it and patient enough, you're going to get through it. I'm sure, no matter who you are. Doesn't matter you're coming from South Korea or American or somebody else. Just do it. Just make it happen. I mean, I truly believe in doing it. I didn't realize this before I started this company, but I just realized how important it is to just go out there and do stuff. rather than just planning it. I know the planning is important, but not as important as the doing it actually. So
That's awesome.
that's what I want to say to
Yeah, and you may think that you didn't have a lot to say, but I think that just that little bit right there says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We'll describe the whole podcast.
Yeah.
Go and do
yeah,
it.
man, we don't even
Don't plan it.
I'll just tell people, hey, don't even have to listen to the whole hour. Just listen to the last 15, last
just a
2 minutes.
little clip at the end.
Yeah.
But awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming out. Thanks for coming on the show. You can go ahead and plug for ExperiMac. So where are you guys located? Do people find you on Facebook? Is there a website?
Yeah, we are located at the corner of Dressler and Fulton, right by the Rooster Swings restaurant, if you know that restaurant. So we open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. We work on all the Apple computers, iPhone, iPads. So if you have any problem or if you're in the market for another computer, iPad, iPhone, we'll be able to help you. We'll help you select the right computers for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, thank you for tuning in to JJD Thoughts Podcast, Episode 4. I'm your host, Jan Olmsey, and I hope to see you back for Episode 5.